So, 1 week we couldn't prepare the 15 minutes of Dr. Leo Pruimboom, but today we're back again. And it's about a very interesting thing. You remember that last week, for 2 weeks ago, we connected the appearance of eyebrow movements, Noi 5GC, the fact that we can suffer acne, and COVID-19, that in one or another way they are connected with each other. The thing is, we've learned from this year of confinement, of the lockdown, a lot of things about human beings. One of the most interesting thing is that our generation and the generation before us never suffered such a thing like a world war, or as we have suffered now, a lockdown. So, because of new science, new ways to measure things, this year has been an incredible advance in science at all levels. And not only in medical science, but obviously also in biology. And what is medicine without biology? And the way evolution shaped our brain. And it is very interesting to see how many people in so many different countries are suffering since the lockdown, of depression, of anxiety syndromes, and all kind of things related with the social life of human beings. There are quite a few animals on the world with the same social necessity as we human beings. Some fishes, like guppies, mouses, bonobo monkeys, they all need, just like us, a social environment where they really can develop, be happy, be brave, and have fun. And that is something which we very often forget. That socializing with other people produces fun. If we compete in studies, in sports, then we want to win. But in depth, it is about having fun. And that is something of which we have learned a lot this year. The absence of fun is a huge risk factor for the development of chronic disease. So, if we see COVID-19 and long COVID-19, long COVID-19 means chronic COVID-19, that we know that at least 1 out of every 10 persons suffer on long term more than 3 COVID-19 symptoms. 20% of all the affected people suffer 3, as I said, and more than 80% suffer at least 1 COVID-19 symptoms 6 months after having suffered the disease. And the most repeated symptom is a lack of, let's say, quality of life, or rather, better said, of pleasure. People have lost their pleasure in life. And you have to, and to understand that, and to help those people, we need to understand the mechanisms behind it. So, a lot of studies, obviously, are looking for neurological explanations, endocrinological explanations, immunological explanations, and everybody finds a little bit. There are very good studies showing that the virus can perpetuate. That means it is really capable of activating, inactivating rhythms. And if it inactivates itself, it is not immunogene. And then you can imagine then in some moment that the immune system of the host suffers a breakdown or something, the virus comes out again. That's easy to understand. But why should it affect those parts of the brain which has got to do with such an important thing as pleasure? And although the connection I'm going to make in the beginning is weird, it has really got to do with the way Homo sapiens lives in his or her lives, and the future of Homo sapiens. And one of the most interesting things in evolution is the fact that almost all animals worldwide, a certain percentage interbreed. That means, it's weird, that species, the logical supposition, so what you probably suppose is that chimpanzees reproduce with chimpanzees, and horses with horses, and mouses with mouses, and rats with rats, and human beings with human beings. But it is very interesting to see that every type of animal worldwide interbreeds. Interbreeding is normally 10% of sexual interaction. You know, one of the interbred species are mules, horses with donkeys, and what comes out is a mule. Obviously, it should be that there is something behind that, because if there would only be 1% better survival or more fertility, this would be a kind of behavior supported by evolutionary laws. Interesting is, so that all of us know that mules are stronger than donkeys, that they are more healthy than horses. But what is very interesting, they are also much more intelligent, and they are much less fragile. And it has long been thought that interbreeding would always diminish fertility. And for a long time, we have thought that all mules in the world are not fertile, that they are not capable of reproduce themselves. But the opposite is true. Gradually it comes out that certain mules who are very interesting, very strong, very intelligent, and also very nice looking, that they are really reproduction capable. And gradually we now start to understand how human beings became less fragile, stronger, and what happened. There is a moment that we became domesticated one species animal. Because if we look to our not very recent but quite recent past, we see that we interbred with other hominoids, and once we were not alone. A lot of people think that evolution is about one species, then the next species, then the next species, but that's not true. What the real truth is that we've always lived together with other species, together, not separated. And we interbred, we really interbred. Everybody knows with Neanderthalers. But also homos, so like gracilis and erectus, although we draw them in anthropology as one after the other, the reality is that we lived at the same time with them and we interbred. And there is one moment when interbreeding stopped in Homo sapiens. That's the moment what we talked about last time. The disappearance of a molecule which is called Neu5Gc. And so between 6 million or 3 million years ago, some pathogen, probably malaria, but now more probable a virus, killed all the people who were capable of producing Neu5Gc. So at this moment, we are not able to produce Neu5Gc anymore. The adaptation seems anti-pathogenic. But in anthropology, there's also a thing which is called exaptation. Something added to an adaptation which seems a coincidence, but is not at all a coincidence. And that made humans incapable to interbreed. You know why? If Neu5Gc is gone, and you only have Neu5AC, which is another sugar molecule which we have on your spermatozoids, then if the spermatozoid would be covered with an enormous amount of Neu5Gc, the human oocyte would never be able to be inseminated. And that made it impossible to interbreed. So we cannot interbreed anymore, and the question should be, could that make us more fragile? People who know me, I've spoken about Neu5Gc very often, in a negative way. But in science, you should also be capable of looking through another type of glasses. And gradually it comes out that the non-capacity of interbreeding is making us more fragile. Neu5Gc, the lack of it, increases the possibility of developing diabetes type 2. And hey people, COVID-19 affected a lot of fragile people, is affecting a lot of fragile people. And at this moment, the diabetes type 2 thing is one of the biggest pandemics in history. And the third thing is that that interbreeding has got to do, that is a social thing. So our question should really start being, hey, could it be that the fact that we are constantly individualizing is one of the consequences of losing Neu5Gc in our biology? That's a very interesting question, and quite a few data support my hypothesis. If you see young kids living on a farm who drank non-pasteurized milk, they have antibodies against Neu5Gc. Very interesting. They are protected against multiple sclerosis. They are protected. They have much less Hashimoto. Very interesting is that if you measure their social capacities, they are much more socializable than people who are not having a type of antibody against that IgG, that Neu5Gc. That's an antibody which produces Neu5Gc tolerance, as if we have again interbred with other animals. We do that after being born, obviously, but something has, the bell is ringing, and it's about time that we start re-socialize again. I thank you very much for this 15 minutes. I hope to see you next week again. Bye bye.